Devon could not remember the last time he had closed his eyes. It had been almost a week since his father fell ill, too long to recall for certain. He was pacing back and forth in the immense bedchamber. The subtle click-clack of his heels across the stone had been the only sound in quite some time. Court had moved to the privy chamber, behind a door in the back wall, a door Devon was not allowed to pass through. "My prince, it would be unwise to expose you to the illness," the Lord Steward had said. "It is a risk the council is willing to take, but you must not." So Devon was left to wait in the king's bedchamber, with books and banners and murals on the walls. Before him sneered a painted dragon, skewered at the end of a lance by a man who looked an awful lot like his father. "I wonder what it feels to be skewered with a lance of sickness," he thought. Devon often wondered what the future had in store for him. At times he even asked himself what kind of a king he wanted to be, if a king at all. A good one, he thought. Perhaps not like him. Sickness had taken hold of the king right away. It had been at a state dinner of all things, and his Majesty had eaten well. The Grand Duke of Hammerhall and the Duchess of Ganderfell had been visiting from the northern hills and the western woodlands, respectively. As such, the king had spared no expense on an elaborate feast, any excuse he could find to drink himself into an early grave. But it was not the drink that bested him, but sickness. He had quickly lost his appetite, and his eyes became sunken and gray. "My love," the queen had said, "are you all right?" "I'm fine, Lavinia," he growled. The king shrank into his cloak, though it was the height of summer, with golden sun beating down upon the white stone city. They had asked then if he was well, but he only scoffed and sneered, and ordered that the meal proceed. He was not afraid of a little chill. Lavinia did not attend her husband readily. She held her son's hand instead. She wasn't worried about her husband, Devon had realized after the fact. She was worried about my father. There was a difference, he knew. A difference between life and death. "My love, are you quite sure?" "I said I'm fine." The king made a move to stand, but he fell back into his chair. The Duke and Duchess adjourned to their quarters. They had refused a fourth course. The king had gone on to an eighth and a ninth. His queen ate no more than a second helping of bread and cheese. Devon had even less. No doubt the Duke and Duchess thought his Majesty had simply overindulged himself. When the king had finally managed to stand, it was an unhappy memory for Devon Thorne. He had always feared his father, hoping to avoid him whenever possible. Not that day. There was no fear that day, nor judgment in his eyes. The king began to twitch at first. The smell was their first clue. He emptied his bowels right there in the dining room. King of Wildran soiled himself before his family, and retched warm water over the marble floor. He hadn't stopped for more than 7 days. Devon waited patiently for his father to die, though the fishy smell from the privy chamber made his nose curl and his stomach churn. He was not alone in the king's bedchamber. "Is it wrong, my lord," Devon asked, "to pray for a man to die?" The lord in the corner was somewhat startled from his reverie. He had been sketching a rune in a small leather journal. Now he faced the prince. "It would be better that he lived, your Majesty, and learnt more from this world before he passed into the sweet embrace of the sun and moon. Didn't take you for a magister of the faith, Lord Mannion. I am far from it. The king's own stargazer can have faith as well." Lord Mannion stood up from the shadows, smoothing the creases in his great coat. He was a large man, tall and broad and bald, without a scrap of hair left. He was wise. "I am no priest, your Majesty, but I do believe in the power of prayer. And I don't think your prayers are—" Devon held his tongue before he said something stupid. "Magisters have eyes and ears everywhere," he reminded himself, "and the Archmagister of Harran is close." right there in the other room. I'm afraid we are not favored by the gods, he said softly, carefully. Then why don't we change that, your majesty? The king won't miss us. He has no need of your star charge today, now does he? Devon said. Lord Mannion smiled in the gloom. Come along, your majesty. This place is depressing.